Welcome into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates. Securities offered through Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Advisory services offered through the Retirement Guys Formula, registered investment advisor. America's Retirement Headquarters, America's Medicare Associates, and the Retirement Guys Formula are separate and independent entities from Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Thanks so much for joining us today, and welcome into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Dave Ross and Jeremy Baker. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. It's 419-794-3030. You can find them online, find out more about the team, set up a time to speak with them as well. arhq.com. My name is Chris Swan. Today on the show, we'll get some powerful retirement lessons from those already there, why a human financial advisor might be better than a robo-advisor, and what's all this about a $16,000 Social Security bonus? We'll get into all this and more, but first, let me check in with the guys. Jeremy, Dave, glad to be with you today. How we doing?
Doing pretty well, Chris. It was an interesting weekend because it was the first time in, a couple months where there wasn't tennis and there wasn't some kind of sports going on. So actually had a family get-together with all my cousins, which I haven't seen in quite a while. So it was a fun event, and it was good to catch up with all my family members.
Yeah, the weather's been great too, and that's always a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things to look forward to. The sports may have cooled down a little bit, but time with family is always a great thing. Whatever it is that you choose to occupy your time with, make sure you get to enjoy it and relax. Same sort of thing when it comes to retirement, making sure you get to enjoy whatever it is you have planned or whatever you aspire to do in retirement. But you need to have a plan in place so that you can take some of the, your eyes off the market, relax a little bit. That's what we want to get you thinking about here on the show. And that's what we want to talk about actually with this first story, because we often see headlines that proclaim America is experiencing a retirement crisis. Andrew Biggs with the American Enterprise Institute, he disagrees. He tells the Broadcast Retirement Network the polls show quite the opposite.
If you ask them that question, they will say yes. And yet the data tell a very, very different story. And I think the disconnect is that Americans fear there's a retirement crisis for other people. But if you actually ask retirees today to describe their financial security, maybe about 5% would describe their own financial situation as a retirement crisis.
Now, when you meet with new clients, do you find that some rely on headlines to guide their retirement decisions? If they came in with doubts about their own retirement readiness, their prospects, were you guys able to turn those attitudes around?
I wouldn't say, I don't necessarily agree with bad retirement attitudes, but what I do agree with is that there's a lot of pre-retirement anxiety. And what I mean by that is people, they want to know that they're going to have enough money to enjoy the type of retirement that they deserve or what they want, and they want to do the things that they want to do. So here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we kind of work with each person to create a situation where we give them a non-judgmental number of what it is they have and really put the ball in their court as far as them deciding whether they feel they're fit for retirement. And usually most people that work with us, they come to the realization that they do have the wherewithal to retire. Yes, there are different things that will change throughout the retirement life cycle, and we just kind of navigate them through it. So it's not really a changing an attitude. It's just giving people the confidence that they're doing the right thing. And I think when we use the independent income system and we take a look at all the different tests that we can put a portfolio through, we help people make informed decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think what I find most is most people want to know if they're doing enough or see where they're at. Kind of that keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing. They might see the neighbor or maybe have a friend that they talk to. It's kind of a difficult conversation to have for some people at some point. I mean, I've always done financial planning, and I think it's the perfect way to go. We have our retirement team action plan, which basically gives bullet-pointed details. Because I think most people, if they knew what they had to do, they would probably do it. So I think that's where we come into play, is letting folks know, like, putting a plan together and letting them know what they need to do to get to their ultimate retirement goal. It's kind of like there's plenty of ways to get to Florida. You could walk, you could ride a bike, you can get in a car, you can get in a plane. So I think we kind of map that out as far as how to get there. And most people are going to take a plane and not walk to Florida, I would think.
And, everyone's going to be starting from a different location. And so, how they get there, those first steps, it's going to change from person to person. There may occasionally be detours along the way. So having that plan to guide you and keep you on track if you veer off track, how to get back to it. Jeremy, you mentioned the keeping up with the Joneses mentality. And I don't know, what is your stance on that? Because, your neighbor's retirement is not going to be the same as your retirement. So just because they're doing X, Y, or Z, do you find it difficult to convince people that, they should be looking at their own personal circumstances instead of, what their friends and coworkers and things are doing?
Yeah, every individual is a little bit different. Retirement's going to look different for everybody. You could look at different plans, different ways to save. People have different budgets. People have different goals and objectives. Some people want to travel. Some people want to do some other things. So it is definitely individual, and that's what we encourage people to do, an individual retirement team action plan.
I remember once when I had my first meeting with a client who had met with at that time it was their current advisor, and the current advisor told them that they absolutely could not afford to retire. And I found that very interesting, because under whose parameters could they not retire? And it sounds like it was more the advisor's parameters that, when we sat down and actually did the plan for the client, it became quite evident that they did have the wherewithal to retire. And, I feel like that's one of the big advantages that our team brings to client service here, is that we do it in a no judgment type, I call it a no judgment zone. We're going to take the input that you have, and we're going to take your goals and objectives, and we're going to create the retirement team action plan with those things at the forefront. And once the top factors have been laid out, we can prioritize the plan to make sure that all of the main bases are going to get hit.
Again, at the end of the day, what's ultimately most important is making sure you have the plan suited for you. Just by listening to the show, just by watching, this segment online or wherever you're consuming it, you're showing you're taking your retirement planning seriously. The next step is, of course, figuring out how it all works for you. That is where the Retirement Guys formula, that is where the Retirement Team Action Plan comes into play. And so to get started with that, figure out your own personal circumstances, your own parameters, developing your own plan, give a call, 419-794-3030. Once again, that's 419-794-3030, or you can find them online, set up a time there as well at arhq.com. Now, Jeremy, Dave, it's hard to believe, but the end of the year is just around the corner, and that means that it's time for certain tax chores. One strategy that investors often use is something called tax loss harvesting. Let's talk about that. Can you explain what it is, and is the process easy to do, or is it something maybe a little too complex to try and do on your own?
Well, I would not call it complex, but here's the thing that people need to remember. So many investors have all of their money, or a great majority of their money, in retirement plans, IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs. So therefore, there's no tax loss harvesting that you can do in an IRA. Now, you can do Roth conversions where you're going to turn traditional IRA funds into non-taxable Roth funds. And when you do that, you're going to pay income tax on those conversions. But for people that have money that's not in a retirement plan, I would say that it makes a lot of sense to take a look at tax loss harvesting, because what you can do is you can sell investments that have lost value, and you can use those losses to counteract gains that you have made in other investments within the portfolio. The one thing to remember when you're looking at carrying forward tax losses is that for federal income tax purpose, you can only claim $3,000 worth of tax losses in a year. So, going all the way back to 2008 when people really got hammered in the marketplace, there were people that booked 6 digits in losses in some cases. So guess what? They're going to have that $3,000 deduction for the rest of their life. So therefore, you know what? It may not be very complex at all for them because they've already booked losses that they've been carrying forward for years. But for people that have been in the market a short time, like say the last 2 years that have been fantastic in terms of returns, you really could make something happen with tax loss harvesting if you made a couple of picks that lost value. So it's a good strategy to consider if you have money that's not in a retirement plan. But other than Roth conversions, there's really not a lot you can do in terms of trying to create lower taxes on a grand scale.
Yeah, I would agree with Dave on most of our listeners are probably going to have, like he said, a majority of their monies in the IRA. And, just to his point as well, the Roth conversions, nobody likes to sell a stock at a loss. I mean, that's kind of not the point of investing, is nobody wants to lose money. But every now and then you might have, even if it's a stock you believe in, maybe it's down, you can sell it, do the Roth conversion, and buy it again, and then the gains are going to be tax deferred. The one thing, Chris, you did ask, is December a good time to schedule a year-end review?
Yeah.
Or earlier? I would say you should probably do it earlier. It creates less stress on everybody else because, as part of our financial planning process, we look at these things and we want to, not get it to where it's where we're under time constraints. We would like to do it maybe a month before or something like that, just to maximize the opportunities.
The other thing I would add about harvesting is there's a concept that's called a wash sale, which, let's say I own a stock that has decreased in value, but I like the company and I think I might want to own this stock again in the future. I can sell it. If I sold it today and waited 31 days and rebought the same stock, the same number of shares, I will have booked that loss, and I can harvest the loss and then turn around and buy the same position back, which could be shrewd tax planning. But I would say that's another reason why having that meeting sooner rather than later, you want to give yourself a chance that if there is something that you could take advantage of in the area of tax loss harvesting, that you can do it in a way where you don't get in trouble over wash sale rules where you buy it within 31 days and you get jammed up again on either gains or losses, however that stock is positioned.
We say so often here on the show, it's never really too early to begin the retirement planning process, nor is it too late. There's no time like the present. Obviously, when it comes to tax planning, though, there are certainly strategies where, especially if you're looking at the end of the year, there is, quite frankly, no time like the present to begin that conversation, whether it is tax loss harvesting, whether it is, developing a strategy for the years ahead, especially with the Trump tax cuts set to sunset at the end of next year. So sitting down, the Retirement Team Action Plan, that T does stand for taxes, and the conversation begins by reaching out 419-794-3030 or finding out more about the America's Retirement Headquarters, the Team Action Plan, and setting up a time to speak with them. And you can do that at arhq.com. If you talk to any experienced trick-or-treater, they likely know where the homes are that give out the good candy, especially the king-size candy bars, and they'll probably return next year to get that same satisfying, long-lasting treat. What does this have to do with retirement? Well, in retirement, annuities are much like getting that reliable full-size bar, but in the form of guaranteed income. You can buy your own candy bars with that, I suppose. So is an annuity the right treat for somebody's retirement plan?
I think when we start talking about annuities, what we're really talking about is reliable income. And when we do a retirement team action plan for you and we implement the independent income system, one of the key pillars of that system is coming up with what is the reliable income that we can count on. If you have a pension, that would count. If you have Social Security benefits, that would count. In many cases, if you purchase an annuity with part of your retirement savings, that also would count. So when we put together the retirement team action plan in the category reliable income, we want to know that we have enough money in that reliable income bucket to be able to pay all of the basic standard costs of living, which could be housing, food, shelter, the basics. Then we would implement the rest of the retirement savings to factor in for future needs and for inflation hedges. So an annuity makes a lot of sense from a standpoint of it provides a guaranteed income for life. I think, Jeremy, the one thing that is the big decision for most clients is what type of annuity should I consider for that part of my income plan?
That's a really good question. And, for the listeners out there are different types of annuities out there. There's variable annuities, fixed annuities. And some companies are, consider annuities like a four-letter word. They would not use them at any point. Mm-hmm. I think what an annuity does is like Dave mentioned, it gives you lifetime income. An annuity protects you from living too long, whereas life insurance protects you if you pass away early. One of the biggest areas that I use the annuities in is, Dave mentioned a pension. A lot of folks have what's called a lump sum option in their pension, and they can either turn on the annuity themselves or they can put the lump sum, a portion of the pension, into an annuity and create their own private pension. Depending on who you work for, would you rather have them or the government kind of control your money or have control of it yourself? And I find with a lot of our clients, the answer is I'd rather control it myself.
And for those who don't have the luxury of a pension, because those have gone by the wayside, this is a way to create that pension-like income. We talk about the importance of guaranteed income so often because the bills don't stop in retirement. Obviously, if you have paid off your mortgage, that's fantastic, but you still have to pay for utilities. You still have to, you've got to eat, things like that. You are going to have monthly expenditures. So this is something to help cover those essential expenses. But as far as discretionary income, because it's not an all or nothing situation when it comes to annuities, right? You don't want all of your money tied into one strategy or another, but finding that right blend because the growth potential in the market as well as the volatility, it's something that can't be discounted, can it?
No, and I would also add that there are annuities that exist today that actually offer you insurance against downside.
Okay.
I've actually come across a variable annuity that will protect you like the first, and you can choose this benefit. It will protect you for either a 10% up to a 10% market loss or a 20% market loss. And if you have that situation, the insurance company makes your account good. Now, if you have a 20% buffer and the market drops 23%, you only experience a 3% loss of your principal value. But I would also say that, with the popularity of fixed indexed annuities, those give you the opportunity to participate in the market, but really manages what happens to your money on the downside, which, there's a lot of people who make the case that, well, you have no downside because the worst you can do with a fixed index is a 0% return. That may be true in some cases, but it does protect you from downside because a lot of people buy annuities not for current income, but they might be buying them for a future income stream to be able to factor in a pay raise for themselves throughout the retirement the retirement life cycle. So you have protected lifetime income. It can protect growth. Coming back to fixed index, if the market goes up 12% in a year, a lot of indexed annuities have a cap that's attached to it, which means the insurance company will allow you to participate to a certain point. And it could be 6%, it could be 7%, it could be 8%. It's kind of dictated by contract. But if you have a cap, that helps you on the upside, but on the downside, it means that your downside protection, you might not have a situation where you will lose money. So between growth, income, and the ability to tax defer the earnings within the annuity, you've got some key benefits that will really play in the investor's favor as they proceed down to retirement time.
Let me just add one more thing to that. If you have an annuity now and you'd like to know what your caps are, what your participation rate is, I had a client come in a couple of weeks ago. They had a 13% spread on their annuity. And what that means is the market had to get 14 for them to get 1. He had this thing for 8 years. I think it made money 1 out of the 8 years. And the other thing is it's non-qualified money, which means it's not in a retirement account. So if you have an annuity and, we talked about tax loss harvesting earlier, if you have an annuity that's non-qualified and you cash it in and, let's say you did something else with it, you would owe the taxes on that. So if you have questions on your annuity, want to figure out what the cost is, what the spreads are, the cap rates, and the most tax efficient way to exchange those products, you should probably give us a call.
And that number is 419-794-3030 to do that. Think of annuities as, obviously they are financial vehicles, but think of them as a tool. If you go to the hardware store and you have a certain project in mind, there are tools out there that will benefit you and make it easier for you to accomplish that project. In the same sort of way, when it comes to your retirement plan, there are features of annuities that could benefit you one way or another, depending on what you're trying to achieve. Now, it does not need to be the only tool that you've got in your toolbox. It may not even necessarily be a tool that you need in your strategy at all, but having that conversation with the guys at America's Retirement Headquarters to shine a little light on that, you might have a tool in your toolbox that you don't even know why you got it, an older annuity like Jeremy talked about there. But just getting a little bit of clarification, showing if it could be right for you, if you already have one in place, and you find out that maybe that's not suitable, being able to explore other options out there. That is the benefit that you get, the 50 plus years of experience from the team at America's Retirement Headquarters can bring to the table to see if it could be a valuable part of your retirement strategy. You just have to take the first step, reach out and give a call. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. Once again, 419-794-3030, or you can find them online, and that is at arhq.com. The Federal Reserve meets again early next month to decide whether to cut interest rates once again. Wealth manager Ryan Payne thinks the Fed went too deep in its first cut of a half point, its first cut in 4 years. He tells Fox Business there's now a danger of high inflation creeping back into the picture.
You have $6.5 trillion sitting in money market funds. As that every day that rate goes down a little bit lower, it was at 5%, now it's 4.6%. Fed's going to continue to cut, but it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. So the question is, where's that money going to go? And I argue, if the Fed continues to be this aggressive with their monetary policy and cutting, you're overheating the economy. You're going to force a lot of money in places like the stock market, which is going to create that melt up. We've kind of been in the midst of that.
So what exactly does Ryan mean when he talks about a market melt up? What are you recommending that clients do with their cash as interest rates or seem like they're poised to continue to fall?
There's actually two things going on right now that could lead to a market melt up. First and foremost, we're in a presidential election year. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the history of market returns during presidential election years, I think the average return is 11.5%. And the very interesting factor is that it doesn't matter whether a Republican or a Democrat holds office. So, not to make this a political discussion, but I think where we're at with a lot of this is that with 20 days to go before the election, People just want to have a little bit of certainty. They want to know who's going to be leading the country for the next 4 years, and who's going to be running the government in terms of the House of Representatives and the Senate. So having optimism that our country is moving forward and choosing leaders, that's one element that kind of helps contribute to this meld up. Now you've got a second factor, which is the Federal Reserve actively cutting interest rates. So when you take a look at fixed income investments, so a lot of people that are getting close to retirement, they feel like, well, I need to ratchet down the risk level of my portfolio in the event that something bad happens and I don't want to have a big loss. Well, bonds are a very interesting animal in the standpoint of when interest rates go down, the underlying prices of the bonds themselves will go up. And Jeremy, I think you'll agree with me that over the last few years, bond funds have had a tough way to go. That a lot of people that were buying bonds and being successful investing were investing in treasury securities, and they were investing in corporate bonds of investment grade qualities. They were buying the bonds directly in the market, not necessarily buying bond funds. But if the Fed keeps cutting rates, it is going to force people out of the money market and into the stock market, which I don't know. That's a crapshoot.
It is a kind of a big question. The market's kind of setting records every day at an all-time high. I know we went from the last couple of years, we were encouraging the I bonds as something to do with your lazy assets and your cash. The money market funds were extremely popular and still are. I mean, 5.17, and then now as the gentleman mentioned, they're around 4.5. We always look at what we call lazy assets, as far as cash and stuff, things like that, to where we want to do something different with them. So money market funds, short-term bond funds, and when we look at inflation, the I bonds are definitely a good alternative.
It's all about exploring the options, and as we talk about so often here on the show, the threats and the opportunities that do rise. If inflation goes up, can the interest rates benefit from that? If interest rates go down, how is the market? The opposite side as well, the opportunities versus the threats. Developing a strategy, being aware of it, is key, and having a plan in place to begin with, to know that when X happens, Y and Z happen, we'll follow suit. Being able to stick with it if changes do dictate that. Of course, being able to move whenever possible. We won't know the cuts, whether or not the Fed does cut them, until after the election day, and hopefully we'll have an answer as far as the results of the election by that time. Although history will show it might take a little bit longer than that. But here's the thing: there's going to be an election every 4 years. There's going to be market fluctuation throughout the history of your retirement. You want a plan that can get you to, through, and beyond. That is what the guys at America's Retirement Headquarters do. They help create and maintain the plan, and it all begins with that phone call. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. It's 419-794-3030. You can also set up a time and speak with them at arhq.com. Now, a recent Gallup poll revealed a stark difference in retirement confidence between current retirees and those still planning for retirement. It found that 80% of people already retired felt like they would have enough to live comfortably, but that confidence number plummets to around 50% for non-retirees. So I have to wonder, what are today's retirees doing right, and what could those still planning for retirement learn from them?
I think people that are retired have come to grips with, this is what I want my retirement to look like. When they work with us here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we can actually show them what they can count on in terms of income, guaranteed income, as well as positioning funds in their portfolio for midterm and long-term growth. So the people that have retired, they've basically gotten on board with a strategy. And that's, working with a financial advisor goes a long way to making that a reality. Those who are not, when you look at a scenario where only 35% of people have a relationship with a financial advisor, can you imagine going through the thought process of, I think I want to retire, but I don't know if I can? There's a lot of uncertainty there. And so here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we really want to take time to help you develop a plan, develop a retirement team action plan, implement the independent income system, and lay out a framework for your retirement that gives you confidence that regardless of what may happen down the road, you're going to have the financial ability to handle it and to enjoy your retirement on your terms and not always be living in fear as far as, am I going to run out of money? What happens if my health turns south? We've got Scott here that works with America's Retirement Headquarters in the Medicare Associates Department. So here in our office, we've got all of the tools in place to be able to help you make an informed retirement decision. And I think that's why, people who have a relationship with a professional, they just become a lot more comfortable with how their retirement is going to lay out. I think a lot of times people also, when we lay out their particular situation, we can allay a lot of the fears that they have as far as, have I saved enough money? And we can give them a lot of confidence from the standpoint of, regardless of what may happen down the road, your health might turn, you might want to travel early on in your retired life. We give clients the confidence to be able to pull the trigger on retirement, and they know that their back is covered if things need to change or if there needs to be a pivot in the financial plan itself.
That's a really good point, Dave. And one of the things we do is, stress test people's portfolio and their plan, because you take a look at, you mentioned this, a health crisis. There's a few things that could really blow up a financial plan, and we take a look at those. If somebody needs nursing home care or things like that, that's what we're here for. That's what we take a look at, is developing different scenarios that say, hey, here's my ultimate plan. What could blow this up? And, whether it be Social Security going out of business, healthcare crisis, inflation. There's a number of things that we take a look at to give people the confidence that they're able to retire and keep going through retirement.
Again, it is all about that confidence, making sure that you've run the numbers, or the team like America's Retirement Headquarters has run the numbers and taken in the different variables you may encounter down the road. We don't know when there's going to be market fluctuation or a possible pullback. We do know it's probably going to happen. Taxation, how that goes into place. If you have these things accounted for, it certainly can give you that confidence as you enter into retirement and stay retired. I can't help but think of my son. I've spoken about him many times here on the show. He's 8, and there are times where he is hesitant to do something because it is the unknown. He hasn't experienced it before, learning to swim. Great example. But once he does it, once he makes that jump, he feels much more confident and realizes, there were not things that he needed to be concerned with. He's actually okay with it. Now it's tough to get him out of the pool whenever possible. Not saying that you should just jump when it comes into retirement. You should develop a strategy ahead of time. Make sure you take into account all of the variables. And Jeremy, to talk about what you were saying, the growth in people that are using an advisor these days, I think it just goes to show that people are eager to find that confidence. And so if you're out there listening and you find that you may be concerned about your retirement prospects, my challenge to you, reach out to the team, give a call, set up a time, have them run that retirement team action plan for you, start developing that. It's as simple as reaching out, 419-794-3030, or going to the website, and that is arhq.com. Because scientists have discovered a sixth ocean that is more than 400 miles beneath the Earth's surface, and they estimate that it is 3 times larger than all of the other oceans pretty combined. I have to admit, that's pretty cool. Makes you wonder how it stayed concealed for so long. But this isn't a science show. This is a retirement show. So let's pivot here. It makes me think of fees that are hidden deep in a retirement plan. How do you guys help uncover and reduce them?
Well, we live in a environment of full disclosure. Jeremy and I and all of the fellows here, the people here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we are fiduciaries, which the basic definition is 100% of the time we have to act in the client's best interest. So if we are recommending a portfolio of investments, let's say a mutual fund portfolio of investments, we have to offer high quality funds, but we also have to offer the lowest cost share class within that family of mutual funds. There's in the old world of investing, and a lot of people, baby boomers, I know Jeremy and I will both attest to this. When we started investing as young people, we were told we could buy A shares, we could buy B shares, we could buy C shares. And people say, well, what's the difference? Well, an A share, you're going to pay an upfront load. So if I have a 5% load on a $10,000 investment, I'm going to pay a $500 fee upfront to buy a mutual fund. So I'm not investing $1,000. I'm investing $950. If I buy a B share, do B shares exist anymore? I don't think they do.
I don't think they do.
Well, we'll skip that. C shares, you pay no loads up front. But here's the thing. If you sell the fund within a year, they're going to recover the 1% fee that they pay the advisor, but the cost of ownership of a C share mutual fund, I've seen it where it's 3 times more than it is on an A share. But people they say, oh, I'm not paying any fees to buy this mutual fund. Well, that's really not true. So when you come in and you sit down with us here at America's Retirement Headquarters, we're very proactive from the standpoint of we want you to know what you own. We want you to understand how you're paying for different things, and we will explore all the different options of how you can purchase investments, not just mutual funds, stocks, ETFs, and annuities, but how all those costs work together. And we will come up with a cost-effective plan that will help you position your portfolio to achieve what you need it to achieve in retirement. So with the Retirement Guys formula, we manage money, and we charge a management fee. So when you enter into a relationship with us, you're going to sign an agreement that's going to say how much you're going to pay, what percentage of your assets are you going to pay in terms of fees. And it's very, very transparent. You know what you're going to pay, and it's funny. Do you see those commercials for Fisher?
Yeah, Ken Fisher.
He says, we do better when you do better. You know what that is? If your portfolio goes up and you're paying a 1% fee, you're paying 1% on an increasing balance. So yes, they're doing better when the client does. But I would say that's true of any fiduciary investment advisor. We do better when the client does better because the balances in the accounts are going up. So I think the landscape has become a lot less tricky over the last few years, but it doesn't hurt to have a full understanding of the fees that you're paying and how that could affect you long term.
There's a few tools that we have at our disposal here. Technology is a great thing. I always found that fiduciary to be sort of funny in a way, where you have to act with the client's best interest. Like, I've always done that.
Yeah.
Why does there need to really be a rule? It's like a doctor going to the doctor and saying, well, I'm going to save this patient today. I have a responsibility. A couple things I would like to point out too is there's been a lot of, Dave mentioned mutual funds, and it took me back 20 years. There's a number of things that are helping investors today, and that's, you have companies like Vanguard, you have companies like Fidelity and Charles Schwab that are all competing for client business. And what that is doing for the investor is the fees are much lower. They're all competing on price. So we consider ourselves a no-load company because we can use any of those companies. We primarily use Charles Schwab because they are very low cost. It's great for the investor. And if you need a tool, we have tools that are available that'll show you what your fees are, what your fees and expenses are. Some people are surprised by it, quite frankly, because they think, oh, I'm not paying anything because it doesn't show up on my statement, especially in things like 401ks. So if you want to have that analysis, you want to know what you're paying. Like Dave said, it was important to know what you own, but it's also important to know what you're paying, who you're paying, and why you're paying for it. There's definitely some mutual funds that have internal expenses that people don't know about as well. So if you have some of those and you want an analysis, let us know.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to value. Are you getting value for what you're paying? And if you don't know what you're actually paying, it's really difficult to assess that. I was just having a conversation with a friend earlier this week about Disney Plus and them going up in price once again, and whether or not that is still of value to them. Being able to assess that, again, it's right there in those emails from them. But when it comes to your retirement accounts, the strategies you're using, you don't know if you don't know. But the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, they can help you with that, with a fee analysis. And if you decide at that point it is not worth the value to you, being able to explore other options, that begins with that phone call to the team, to the Retirement Guys formula, 419-794-3030, or you can go online to the website as well, and that is at arhq.com. We've talked before here on the show about robo-advisors and how they might be smart for a young person who's just started investing. Anything is better than nothing, obviously. But are these automated accounts ideal for someone who is approaching retirement in a world of ChatGPT and Googling for answers? What can a human financial advisor, what can the team at the Retirement Guys formula provide that AI and the internet can't?
I don't know about you, Jeremy, but if I was an investor and I had a robo portfolio and I see the market starting to take a spin for the worse, and I'm just wondering, I wonder what they're doing over there. I wonder if they're going to make moves that's going to limit my losses. I think for a person that's nearing retirement, that could become very unsettling. And by having a human factor by having a living, breathing financial advisor that answers the phone and answers your questions, I think that comfort level really will become a lot more manageable, and anxieties won't take over the thought process of these clients. Could you imagine having a robo portfolio in 2008?
Oh, geez. Especially when, the market took a deep turn. I'm the type, I don't even use the automated checkout counters at the grocery store. I look for the human. That human element to me is very important. If I was, thinking of our clients and the folks that we meet with, I couldn't imagine them, not coming into the office, not looking face to face. I know over with COVID, we did a lot of stuff over Zoom, and I'm a little uncomfortable with that as well, because I like to be across from the folks. And as a consumer myself, I like to have that personal touch. I think that's very underrated.
The retirement team action plan consists of, it evaluates taxes, estate planning, asset protection, and money management. So the estate planning side of it, I don't know of any robo plan that provides that kind of advice. So if a client has definite wishes of how they want their assets to pass when they die, an AI advisor is probably not going to be able to help them as much as a member of the retirement, America's retirement headquarters. Crafting a plan that covers all of those things. Do you have a plan in place that's going to take care of you in the event that you need to be confined to a nursing home? We deal with that. That's a big part of our asset protection strategy within our retirement team action plan. You won't get that from a robo advisor. Coming back to the earlier saying when a young person is getting started, I could see where robo plans would make sense for them, especially if they think that it's a low cost option. So should a portfolio have circuit breakers attached to it that help manage downside loss if the market gets dicey? When a person's young, dollar cost averaging is where it's at. You're buying, if the market's down, you're buying more shares for your money. If the market's up, you're not buying as many, but you're also investing for a 30 to 40 year time frame. So it's really not about what the balance is early on. It's, am I taking the steps to become an investor? As you get closer to retirement, these other elements, they really matter, and they really take precedence over just trying to make money and grow your nest egg.
It really is all about that nuance. And I don't know how much experience people have out there using AI prompts and things like that. You have to be very specific to get the answer or the product, the end result that you want. But at the end of the day, is it what you want or is it what you need? You may find yourself asking the questions and then it says, oh, you're going to be okay because you asked it in a certain way. But if you're using that human element, if you're using the Retirement Guy's formula and something doesn't look right, they're going to let you know. You may not want to hear it, but in the longer run, you're going to be better for it. That is where that nuance comes in. That is the power of that human interaction. That is something you are not going to get from a robo-advisor. So reach out to the team, set up a time to speak with them, start developing that plan as it pertains to your circumstances to get you to, through, and beyond retirement. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. One last time, 419-794-3030. You can always find them online, arhq.com. I want to thank you, as always, for spending part of the day with us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. It is, after all, the home of the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates. We have a great day ahead of you. Gentlemen, always grateful for the time. And as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with the final word.
We're having what they call in northwestern Ohio a Indian summer. The weather up here is supposed to be in the 60s and 70s for pretty much most of the week. So people who want to get outside and enjoy things, I'm a golfer, so I hope to get out on the golf course a couple times this week. This is a great opportunity, one that normally doesn't present itself in late October. So get out and enjoy the good weather.
America's Retirement Headquarters is located at 1700 Woodlands Drive in Maumee, Ohio. You can reach them by calling 419-794-3030 or online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Nolan Baker is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstance. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Nolan Baker, Ohio Insurance License Number 27787.